Go ahead and call to order the Wetlands Board for July 9th, 2025. The responsibility of this board is to carry out locally the Commonwealth policy to preserve the wetlands and to accommodate economic activity so as to prevent their despoliation. Mr. Wilson, can we have a roll call?
Mr. Oadley.
Here.
Mr. Waltrip.
Here.
Mr. O'Brien.
Here.
Mr. May.
Here.
Ms. Bowie.
We have the minutes from the June 11th meeting. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes unless there's changes?
Changes for me. I move to approve the minutes from the June 11th meeting.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Minutes are approved from June 11th. We'll go ahead and move to the public comment period. The public comment period offers a chance for community members to express their opinions. Topics discussed shall not be directly related to the specific public hearing items. To participate, speakers must provide their name and address for the record. Is there anybody from the public that'd like to address the board? Not seeing anyone. We'll move on to the public hearings. The outline for tonight's public hearings will be a staff presentation followed by any questions or clarifications from the board. Then the public hearing will be opened. At that time, anybody wishing to speak may do so once called upon by the chair. All public speakers must state their name and address for the record. Presentations before the board are subject to time limits. After everyone wishing to speak has done so and discussion among the board has concluded, the public hearing will be closed. We'll go ahead and take the first case, WJPA 250016 by Ms. Grosjean.
Chairman, members of the board, Emily Grosjean, Watershed Planner, presenting WJPA 25-0016. NAMO LLC has applied for a wetlands permit on behalf of Mr. Robert Ingalls for the installation of a bulkhead on property located at 104 Godspeed Lane within the Powhatan Creek watershed. As you can see, that watershed boundary is outlined in yellow with the subject parcel in question in blue. A closer up look of the property. The existing bulkhead that's failed is located right about here. This is the existing topography and the RPA, as well as the floodplain. On April 16th, 2025, staff was notified by the agent that a bulkhead had failed at 104 Godspeed Lane and the permitting process to install a new one began. The applicant is proposing to install a 75-foot vinyl bulkhead in the same footprint as the existing failed wooden one. All work will be accessed from the upland. So this is a site plan here with that bulkhead going in the same footprint, here in orange. The mean high water and mean low water were not provided on the application. Again, they weren't provided, but here's the cross-section of that proposed bulkhead. And just kind of as a reference point, clearly it has failed, and this is the erosion that's currently going into the canal behind the property. Just a further down look of that existing bulkhead that has failed, and then to the end here where it ties into that adjacent bulkhead. And then looking back down the other way to the right, again, we see where it's failed and how it's kind of just being held in right here. You can see where the land just kind of sloughed out into that canal. And then looking further down to where it's going to tie in here to that adjacent bulkhead. On February 1st, 2025, the Wetlands Mitigation Compensation Policy of the Code of Virginia was amended. Virginia, as a Chesapeake Bay program partner, is committed to achieve a no net loss of existing wetlands acreage and function in the signatories' regulatory programs. In order for a proposed project to be authorized to impact wetlands and compensate for the wetland loss in some prescribed manner, the following three criteria must be met. All reasonable mitigative efforts, including alternative siting, which would eliminate or minimize wetland loss or disturbance, must be incorporated in the proposal. The proposal must be clearly water dependent in nature, and the proposal must demonstrate clearly its need to be in the wetlands and its overwhelming public and private benefits. If the proposed project cannot meet one or more of the above criteria, the project must be denied or must occur in areas outside of wetlands. Should it satisfy all three criteria, however, compensation for the wetland loss is required. The sequence of acceptable mitigation options should be as follows: mitigation bank, improved in lieu fee program, permittee responsible on-site and in-kind mitigation, or permittee responsible mitigation through off-site or out-of-kind mitigation within the same watershed. If compensation is required, it should be a condition of the permit. Staff has reviewed this application and finds that this project meets the 3 criteria outlined above. While there are no proposed vegetated tidal wetland impacts, there will be disturbance within the RPA due to construction access in the upland portion of the site and associated grading. Staff will be requesting a surety to ensure the RPA is revegetated and restabilized. Staff has reviewed the above application and recommends approval of the application as presented. Should the board wish to approve the application, staff suggests the following conditions be incorporated into the approval. The applicant must obtain all other necessary federal, state, and local permits as required for the project, including a residential building permit. All development activities located in the specified flood hazard area shall comply with Article 6, Division 3 floodplain area regulations of the James City County zoning ordinances and receive all required approval and permits prior to commencement of such activities. The applicant must submit a surety of $1,000 in a form acceptable to the James City County Attorney's Office to guarantee the stabilization of the upland disturbance. And the wetlands permit for this project shall expire on July 9th, 2028, if construction is not already begun. And if an extension of the permit is needed, a written request must be submitted to the SRP Division no later than May 28th, 2028, which is 6 weeks prior to the expiration date. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them at this time.
Questions for the staff from the board?
Emily, was that a recent catastrophic failure slump?
Yes, the owner had noticed that it was going into failure for some time and had been proactive trying to find a contractor. And then unfortunately, just with the weather, it just eventually gave out.
So it hasn't had time to resume a new normal circumstance.
Correct.
Any reason given for the 2 trees to be removed?
In speaking with the contractor, they're going to try to avoid removing one of them. It's an apple tree that the owner has, and they don't want to mess with it if they don't have to. So I encourage them to include it on the application should they need to remove either of those trees, given the construction entrance.
Okay.
No additional questions?
No other questions for staff? Then we'll open the public hearing and take comments from either the applicant or the contractor. If you could come up and state your name and address.
My name is Jeanette Engels. I live at 104 Godspeed, and that's what you're talking about, being able to get a permit. We seem to be losing more soil every day. Every time there's a high tide, more dirt goes out with it. I really don't know what they're going to be doing about it, but I have to leave that to the professionals. But we can't use our backyard at all. I'm so afraid of stepping even 20 feet near it that it might collapse, because that's what happened. One day it just went down. Looked like an earthquake across the whole piece of property. And I'm afraid to go anywhere near it. So that would be it. And I really can't hear anything that any of you is saying.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for your comments. Anybody else wish to address the issue? If not, we'll take it as discussion amongst the board.
No additional discussion for me, fairly straightforward.
Would agree.
Okay. We'll go ahead and close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
Motion to adopt the resolution to grant the permit request for Wetlands Board case number WJPA 25-0016 at 104 Godspeed Lane.
Motion is to adopt. Mr. Roadley,
Yes.
Mr. Waltrip,
Yes.
Mr. May,
Yes.
Ms. Bowie,
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Having no other permits to review, are there any board considerations from the staff or matters of special privilege? Not seeing or hearing any. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Wetlands Board is closed.
With that, I will open the Chesapeake Bay Board for Wednesday, July 9th, 2025. It is the responsibility of this board to carry out locally the Commonwealth policy to protect against and minimize pollution and deposition of sediment in wetland streams and lakes in James City County, which are tributaries to the Chesapeake Bay. Roll call, Mr. Wilson.
Here.
Here.
Here. Thank you. You've had a chance to review the minutes from June 11th. Any corrections or additions?
Sir.
I have a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the minutes from June 11th.
Motion to approve as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. The public comment period, similar to the Wetlands Board, the public comment period offers a chance for community members to express their opinions. Topics discussed shall not be directly related to a specific public hearing item. To participate, speakers must provide their name and address for the record. I will open the public comment period. Anybody wishing to speak to the board? Seeing none, I will close the public comment period. Public hearings, the outline for tonight's public hearings will be a staff presentation followed by any questions or clarifications from the board. Then the public hearing will be opened at any time. Anybody wishing to speak may do so once called upon by the chair. All public speakers must state their name and address for the record. Presentations before the board are subject to time limits. After everyone wishing to speak has done so and discussion amongst the board has concluded, the public hearing will be closed. First item on the agenda is CBPA 25-059 at 220 Jeffersons Hundred. Ms. Frazier.
Evening, Chairman, members of the board. Amanda Frazier, Watershed Planner, presenting CBPA 25-0059. Mr. Chase Grogg of Landtech Resources Incorporated has applied for a Chesapeake Bay exception on behalf of Mr. Thomas and Ms. Catherine Leach for encroachments into the RPA buffer for the construction of a retaining wall and an attached deck located at 220 Jeffersons Hundred within the Kings Mill subdivision in the Skiffs Creek watershed. The parcel was platted in 1989 prior to the adoption of the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Ordinance in 1990. Here you can see the project parcel outlined in blue and the Skiffs Creek watershed boundary outlined in yellow. Here's a closer aerial photo of the property, current topography, and the RPA. The total lot size of this property is 0.647 acres, of which 68% is located within the RPA. The applicants are proposing to construct a retaining wall and an attached deck at the rear of the proposed single-family dwelling, which will be administratively approved. Total impacts to the RPA associated with this proposal equate to 396 square feet in the landward 50-foot RPA. Required mitigation for this amount of impervious impacts equals 1 planting unit for the proposed accessory structures. The applicants have provided a mitigation plan equaling 5.5 planting units, 2 canopy trees, 4 understory trees, and 50 shrubs, therefore satisfying county mitigation requirements for both the home and accessory structures. Here is the site plan showing the wetlands boundary in green, setback in blue, which they have received a variance from Kings Mill to pull the house forward, encroaching into the setback. It's the 50-foot RPA boundary, 100-foot RPA, and the proposed deck, retaining wall, and then they are also proposing some riprap to assist in stormwater management. Is the mitigation plan. Property was not flagged prior to staff taking site photos, so I've tried to orient it as best as I could. Here is a photo looking right off the edge of the pavement. And this, I believe, is the approximate location of the back corner. And the back of the house will be in this direction, and the deck will be approximately here, looking back towards the roadway, and then towards the deck, which I believe will be the general area. And then the retaining wall will be about here. And the riprap in this general area. And then a photo to show you the topography at the rear of the property. Staff has evaluated the application and exception requests for the construction of a retaining wall and an attached deck. This application meets the ordinance conditions in sections 23-11 and 23-14 and should be heard by the board because the construction of a retaining wall and an attached deck is considered accessory in nature. The board may grant exceptions to section 23-7 if the application meets the following 5 conditions, which you have before you. Staff has reviewed the application and exception request and has determined the impacts associated with the proposal to be minor for the proposed development. Staff recommends approval for this exception request, and if the board wishes to approve the request, staff recommends the following conditions be incorporated into the approval. The applicants must obtain all other necessary federal, state, and local permits as required for the project. The applicants must submit a surety of $4,125 in a form acceptable to the James City County Attorney's Office to guarantee the mitigation plan equaling 5.5 planting units, 2 canopy trees, 4 understory trees, and 50 shrubs. This exception request approval will become null and void if construction has not begun by July 9th, 2026. And written request for an extension to an exception must be submitted to the SRP division no later than May 28th, 2026, 6 weeks prior to the expiration date. I'd be happy to take any questions at this time.
Any questions for staff? Thank you very much. With that, I will open the public hearing. Would the applicant or their agent care to address the board?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Grogg, welcome.
Thank you. Members of the board, good to see you. Chase Grogg with Land Tech Resources, 205 Bullifunds Boulevard, Suite E, Williamsburg, Virginia, 23188. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and staff, for allowing me to attend this meeting remotely. I'm here tonight representing Mr. and Mrs. Leach on their proposed home construction in the Kingsville subdivision. Though staff has pointed out to the board, is only reviewing the proposed deck, wall, and riprap. This proposed impact is pretty straightforward, but I would like to highlight a couple of items. As staff mentioned, this lot was platted in 1989 and has remained mostly untouched, while surrounding lots have been developed. When I first looked at this lot, I thought that approaching the Kingsville HOA for a front setback variance would be our best approach. We were able to receive a 4-foot front setback variance from the HOA, which helped to move the house location away from the top of the well-known Kingsville slopes. With the slopes in mind, we added a small retaining wall around the rear of the house to help have a small backyard and bring some additional stabilization to the rear area of the house. It will also allow for water that runs off the back of the house to sheet flow at a slower rate, as well as filter through the stone behind the proposed retaining wall. Though this is not a formal infiltration practice, it still serves as a benefit to the lot and downstream watershed. The water on the left of the lot is being directed to a proposed riprap channel that will take the channel flow and help spread it out into sheet flow and slow it down prior to the rear slopes. The right side of the lot is being directed to an existing concrete channel that currently handles an outflow pipe from the Jeffersons Hundred's right-of-way. In doing our survey and title work, it has been determined that the KCSA pipe infrastructure is located in the wrong area. KCSA will most likely be doing a separate project to relocate these pipes back into the drainage easement located along the right property line, though our plan would be for the concrete channel to remain to allow a great passage for our majority of our surface water down to the Warehams Pond BMP located behind our lot. This pond is JCC BMP JR008 and serves as a downstream pond to treat water prior to it continuing to the James River. Our mitigation plan covers both these impacts being reviewed tonight, as well as the administrative items for the proposed house construction. With both the deck and wall having a very small impervious footprint, as well as proposed disturbance outside of the seaward 50-foot buffer, we would request approval of this project. I'm happy to answer any questions you have at this time.
Chase, is the the location in the photographs that staff identified appeared to put the wall a little bit off of top of slope. Is it in fact off of top of slope, or is it down on slope a little bit?
It's going to run pretty much right along the top of slope. There's some areas where we head down the slope a little bit, but the main goal there was to create a buffer off the back of the house, so we had a flat area with the wall not being proposed over 3 foot tall. I think that should allow for some good stabilization, as well as not as big of a major construction impact as a wall that was over 3 foot would require.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Grog? Thank you. Would anybody else in the audience care to address the board on this matter? Hearing none, the matter is before the board for additional discussion. We've seen numerous retaining walls come in after the houses are built to correct the erosion that's occurring after there's more impervious surface on the lot. So I appreciate them bringing this during the construction process and hopefully avoid that next step.
Looks like they've done a good job. It looks like that cul-de-sac, that's the only lot that's left that hasn't been built on. And it looks like it's consistent with the rest of the homes that are around there. So I think you've done a good job on that.
Any additional discussion? With that, I will close the public hearing. The matter is before the board.
Mr. Chair, I would make a motion to adopt the resolution to grant the exception request for Chesapeake Bay Board case number CBPA-25-0059 at 220 Jeffersons Hundred.
Mr. Wilson,
Motion is to adopt. Mr. Waltrip,
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien,
Yes.
Mr. May,
Yes.
Ms. Bowie,
Yes.
Mr. Roadley.
yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Next item on the agenda is CBPA 25-0060 at 117 Northpoint Drive. Ms. Grogine.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Emily Grogine, Watershed Planner, presenting CBPA 25-0060. Mr. Chase Grog of Land Tech Resources Incorporated has applied for a Chesapeake Bay exception on behalf of Mr. James M. Boyd for encroachments into the RPA buffer for the construction of a single-family dwelling, detached garage, walkway, and driveway located at 117 Northpoint Drive within the Kings Point subdivision and the College Creek watershed. The parcel was platted in 1992 prior to the revisions to the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Ordinance in 2004. Here we have that subject parcel outlined in blue with that watershed boundary highlighted in yellow, and a closer up look of the parcel in question, along with the current topography and RPA. As you can see, a majority of the lot, about 99%, is within the RPA. And then the floodplain as well. The total lot size of this property is 3.49 acres, of which 99% is located within the RPA, as I previously stated. The applicant is proposing to construct a single-family dwelling, detached garage, walkway, and driveway. Only that of the detached garage and portion of the proposed driveway that encroaches into the 50-foot seaward RPA are before the board for approval this evening. A previous Chesapeake Bay exception was administratively approved under CBPA 23-0069 for the existing driveway access. Total impacts to the RPA associated with this proposal equate to 9,328 square feet of impacts to the landward 50-foot RPA, 321 square feet of impacts to the seaward RPA, for a total of 9,469 square feet of impacts to the overall RPA. Required mitigation for this amount of impervious impacts equals 25 planting units, or 25 canopy trees, 50 understory trees, and 75 shrubs. The applicant has proposed a mitigation plan of 8 canopy trees, 26 understory trees, and 191 shrubs, with the addition of 3 infiltration trench stormwater best management practices, or BMPs. This meets the county's mitigation requirements. A letter of installation from a qualified professional to the Stormwater and Resource Protection Division prior to the issuance of a final certificate of occupancy will be included as an approval condition. This letter must verify compliance with all approved construction plans for stormwater BMP facilities. No surveyed as-built drawings are required. So this is the overall site plan here. I will be moving in closer shortly so you can better view this. But what is before the board for approval, for legislative approval, is highlighted in purple and orange, with the orange impacts of the driveway being that of the 50 Seaward RPA and the detached garage in purple as it encroaches within that 100-foot RPA buffer. Just looking closer here, everything within this portion of the lot is in the first 50 feet, the landward 50-foot RPA buffer, and then anything here, that orange driveway portion is in the 50 seaward. We have the proposed single-family dwelling and walkway here, that's under administrative approval, the detached garage and the driveway, along with the 3 infiltration trenches outlined in pink. And then these are the cross-sections and specs for those proposed infiltration trench BMPs. And then this is the proposed mitigation plan. As you can see, all the proposed mitigation is highlighted in green here. And then some recent photography of the site, kind of moving up that driveway here to give you an idea of where we're at in the lot. And then moving further down, kind of where the staking is for the extent of that driveway and its impacts within the 50 seaward. And then just kind of looking to the right more, again, there's a stake kind of indicating the extent of disturbance within that 50 seaward RPA buffer. And then looking back kind of to give you an idea of where that driveway ends and the detached garage would begin, along with where the proposed single-family home and walkway would be. And then just moving further left to show you where that location of the detached garage would be. And then again, where that garage would be in terms of its extent in the 50 landward RPA buffer. Staff has evaluated the application and exception request for the construction of a single-family dwelling, detached garage, walkway, and driveway. This application meets the ordinance conditions in sections 23-11 and 23-14 and should be heard by the board because the construction of a detached garage is considered accessory in nature, and a driveway within the 50-foot seaward RPA cannot be approved administratively. The board may grant exceptions to section 23-7 if the application meets the following 5 conditions outlined before you. And staff has reviewed the application and exception requests and has determined the impacts associated with the proposal to be major for the proposed development. If the board wishes to approve the request, staff recommends the following conditions be incorporated into the approval. The applicant must obtain all other necessary federal, state, and local permits as required for the project. The applicant must submit a surety of $12,500 in a form acceptable to the James City County Attorney's Office to guarantee the mitigation plan equaling 8 canopy trees, 26 understory trees, and 191 shrubs. The applicant must record an affidavit in the Williamsburg-James City County Courthouse prior to the release of surety. And as I stated previously, the applicant must submit a letter of installation from a qualified professional to the SRP division prior to the issuance of a final certificate of occupancy for the 3 proposed stormwater BMPs on site. The exception request approval will become null and void if construction is not begun by July 9th, 2026, and written requests for an extension to an exception must be submitted to the SRP division no later than May 28th, 2026, which is 6 weeks prior to the expiration date. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them at this time.
Questions for Emily? Back to the site plan. I assume there's a vertical retaining wall of some sort along the edge of the driveway, or is there a fill slope that needs to go along with that?
I am going to defer that to the applicant.
I think that's the only question I had. Any other questions for staff?
BMPs are there to compensate for the additional mitigation that would normally occur if you had more canopy trees and they're.
I can't speak to that. That would be a question for the applicant.
Any other questions? Mr. Grog, are you still with us? I will open the public hearing. I think he's connected.
I'm still here. I'm still here, but I thought Sean with Crossroad was gonna, I was here just in case. Is Sean there?
Yeah, he is.
Okay.
Good evening, Board. Sean Lemon, Crossroad Custom Builders, 7596 Uncle's Neck, Joanna, Virginia. Here addressing as an agent for the applicant. The two questions that were asked by the board, one being the driveway side, that area is part of the flatter portion of the property. So while it looks like there's a drop off there, it's actually pretty flat through that area where the driveway comes through. There would not be a need for a retaining wall. There would be able to take care of the grading without excavation or filling in that space.
Okay.
And then to address the second question, which was regarding the infiltration trenches, recognizing that this is a major impact. Actually, the trees, shrubs that are provided as part of the mitigation plan meet the requirements to mitigate the 9,000 plus square feet. The infiltration is just extra insurance, which is mitigating an additional 2,800 and some change square feet. So that's over and above just the requirement for mitigation in the calculations.
The, are you finished? I didn't mean to cut you off. With respect, the application that we had prior to this is a fairly typical example of being proactive in putting in a retaining structure so that when they don't end up with sheet erosion that eventually causes more significant erosion downgrade. Are you and Mr. Grog comfortable enough with the topography and the changes that are proposed that you won't enter into that scenario? Because once the house is built, it's going to become much more problematic to address that type of erosion later.
We did look at that, and actually the positioning of the structure is on the area of the property that has the least concern for potential erosion. So we looked at that as a consideration, but did not feel it necessitated that. We felt pretty confident that we would not have a problem with stabilization post-construction.
Gotcha.
Like your elevation, like running around 20, so you're not in a flood zone there where the house is.
Other questions from the board?
What's the surface of the driveway? How is that being constructed?
It will be an impervious surface. In talking with the client, we haven't decided on the exact substance, but there would certainly be a gravel at a minimum, like a crush and run driveway. But more than likely, they'd like to do a solid surface like a asphalt or a concrete surface.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Would anybody else care to address the board on this matter? Yes, sir. Please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm Bobby Hornsby, 2 Kensington Court, James City County, Virginia, Williamsburg. I'm just here with Jim Boyd, the applicant. We've been working on this project with Chase and with the builder, and just wanted to indicate our willingness to answer any other questions or any further scenarios in support of this, because so we came here, but Chase was gone, and if we have questions for Chase, I'm sure he can help. But we spent a lot of time working with Land Tech to come up with what we felt were real remediation issues, because this is a difficult parcel.
Yeah.
Here in Kings Point. That's all I have to say, and thank you. But we're here for questions if you have any for us. Thank you.
Questions? Not hearing any. Would anybody else care to address the board on this matter? Ms. Grogin.
I have an email from Mr. Alistair McDonald, who lives at 117 Northpoint. He states, "My main concern is the 60-foot stretch of the driveway that borders my lot. Currently, the building site cannot be accessed without encroaching on my property. There had been surveyed flags along the boundary line, but they were removed in May. I assume this issue cannot be addressed at tomorrow's meeting, but I want it noted on the record." So he's referencing this portion right here of the driveway, and in terms of the site plan, this line right here is the boundary line for the property. So he's speaking to this portion right here.
So with respect to the site plan, it doesn't appear that there's a conflict, but the individual.
Does have concerns,
He has
because what's
concerns.
currently proposed does not actually encroach on the property.
Said he was at 117, but this is 117, isn't it?
Oh, excuse me, he's at 115 to the right.
But just for clarity and for the record, as proposed and as presented, it is not encroaching on his
It
property.
is not encroaching on his property,
Thank you.
correct?
Any other questions for Ms. Grosjean? Discussion amongst the board? In looking at this, given that the garage and the driveway are the two pieces that we're reviewing, I looked at how they might cite it slightly differently to perhaps reduce the encroachment, but that bump out in the wetlands that's creating that bubble that the driveway hits, pretty hard to avoid. As proposed with the addition of the stormwater treatment facilities, I don't have an objection to this project.
I would agree with you on that. I would be in support of this application.
I will close the public hearing. The matter is before the board. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt a resolution to grant exception request for the Chesapeake Bay Board case number CBPA 25-0060 at 117 North Point.
Motion to adopt, Mr. Wilson.
Motion is to adopt. Mr. Waltrip?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien? Yes. Mr. May?
Yes.
Ms. Bowie? Mr. Roadley?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
That concludes our public hearings for this evening. We do have, it looks like, one item under board considerations, an extension request.
Mr. Jeffrey Huntleman is requesting a one-year extension to CBPA 24-0078, originally granted on August 14th, 2024. Staff concurs with the request with the stipulation that all permit conditions except for the expiration date be reauthorized and that the new date of expiration be August 14th, 2026.
Motion to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Extension granted. Any matters of special privilege this evening? With that, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.